Yeah, press this thing.
Took years of rehearsing then. Now welcome everyone. It's great to see you, and I'm very sorry to note that we have 6 absentees, all through illness. And we hope that their recovery will make it well, and they'll be with us next year.
Hooray.
Next year. Next year.
I was telling you a little story. Ian asked me earlier this evening what this badge was. This one. And it's a Rotary badge for international charity. And this is a story about Rotary. The Rotarian was driving his Rolls-Royce car in London, and he was stopped by the police. And the policeman said, "Is this your car?" And the driver said, "Oh no, I stole this from the street down there." And his wife said, "Please take no notice of it. He's always like this when he's had a few." That didn't help. The same man was driving the car above the speed limit. He looked in his mirror, and there was a police car right behind him. And he kept on going faster, and so did the police car. And eventually the police car stopped him. And he said, "I'm very busy, and you've been speeding, but if you tell me a good story, I might consider it." And the driver thought. He said, "I watched you following me." And he said, 15 years ago, my wife ran away with a policeman. Just like you. And I could have swear that the woman next to you was my wife. And I wanted to make damn sure she wasn't going to catch up with me again. And the final one is a true one too. I was driving back from the centre of Birmingham in a car in the fog. I had 2 passengers in the back and another in the front. And we didn't know where we were. So the chap said, "Pull up here at the police station." Wound the window down, and the policeman came up. "Yes, sir. My friend, bless him, leaned out and got violently sick over the policeman's boots." The policeman said, "I think you'd better come in for the evening, sir. I will have a little job for you in the morning, cleaning shoes." We left him there. It's been a great pleasure to have you all here this evening. And it's been an excellent meal, excellent company, and we hope that next year, the year after, and the year after, and you're keeping reasonably well for your age. And you, darling, thank you. That's my lot.
Before you go anywhere, we'd like to sing happy birthday to you.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Paddy. Happy birthday to you.
Hip hip hooray! Hip hip hooray! Hooray!
Second
the poem for Paddy's birthday. So
Can
it's
you come up halfway?
yes, I can do that.
Love and
It says, with war at an end and victory well won, back to India he went to have some far more safer fun.
no, that's not the one.
No?
No, the first.
In a life and a time never dreary. For his birthday comes round and we toast once again to that remarkable rascal O'Leary.
Rascal O'Leary.
Lights, camera, action. Today we're interviewing Paddy. Maddie's going to do most interviewing, but we've got Simon here as well, and Brenda's in the background over there. And we're going to ask Paddy about his life. Paddy is he's age 97 and a remarkable life, so it's very significant, I think, to have a permanent record of this so that all can enjoy the experiences that Paddy is going to tell us about the next hour or so. Okay.
You want to say the date, or is that a...
Oh yes, what's today's date, Maddie?
The 8th of June, 2015.
2015.
Paddy? Alrighty. We'll just start off with the basics. So, when you were born, what year and whereabouts?
February the 18th,
February 18th.
1918, just before you.
Just before me. and your mum and dad?
Well, they were older than me.
Whereabouts? England?
They were Irish.
Irish, okay.
Yes, my dad was employed by the Board of Trade, attached to the lighthouse when I was born, in the Galley Head, Clonakilty, County Cork.
So you were born in Ireland?
Yes.
In a lighthouse.
In a lighthouse, very good. Should I get started on the questions, or is it?
Yeah, go for it, Maddie.
Alrighty. Alrighty. Would you like to explain to me, Paddy, what the black and tans are?
Black and Tans was an irregular army recruited from the prisons of Scotland and England, and if the people serving sentences, even life sentence, volunteered to serve in Ireland, they had their sentence commuted. They were free, and they became the Black and Tans. And they were basically unfinished criminals,
Right.
still doing their crime work in Ireland.
Was this after the World Wars, or for the purpose
No,
of...
no, this was during the occupation, before the First World War,
Okay.
before 1918, right through. The general in charge was the First World War general, General Percival, and he was caught later as a prisoner. He disagreed completely with his English number 2 and his Australian number 2. They couldn't agree on the method of confronting the enemy. The Australian and the English deputies both wanted a delayed retreat to give the island time to evacuate. Whereas Percival said no, eyeball confrontation, hand-to-hand fighting. So the island stood no chance. He was captured, and I believe he behaved reasonably well as a prisoner. You know,
You're talking about...
It wasn't his fault. He was not equipped mentally in any form to take command of that sort of war. The First World War.
First World War, okay.
Can I just interrupt? Paddy, there was a lovely story about you as a small boy where you came across some. I think you got some money from the Black and Tans.
Oh, I did. I was in their pay.
You're in their pay, and I
Yeah.
think that you surprised them with
Well,
your answer to the
you
question.
see, my aunt was the district nurse in Skibbereen. My dad had packed in his job. He couldn't stay there any longer because his brother was with Michael Collins, an officer. And Michael Collins was the most famous espionage officer in the world. And that's not exaggerating. He got De Valera out of Lincoln prison, got him out and across the sea to Ireland. Many people think he should have left him there in prison. It's a matter of opinion. But that's how good he was. And he had a tremendous following, and my dad's brother was an officer with him. But my father was not in politics. And he never dabbled in politics. He didn't know where his brother was, but the Black and Tan said he did. So 3 children, he said, no, I'm not staying here. So he packed it in. He wouldn't go to Scotland, nor to England. He went to South Wales because there weren't any Welsh people in the Black and Tans. And that's the story.
Now, you were a small boy at the time, and your father was over in Wales. Wasn't there a story about you earning some coin and the Black and Tans laughing and saying...
Well, you see, when my dad left, he left his job with the Board of Trade. He specialised in wreckage salvage diving. He was a superb diver, and he was seconded to help in laying the cable from the island in South Kerry right across to America. He dealt with that. But when he packed in, because he had 3 daughters, one 4 years younger than myself, and 2 older. And when he left, he found a room for us in Skibbereen, and they came in one morning, about 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock in the morning. Black and Tans came in, 5, 6, smashed everything. Every single thing was smashed, pouring with rain. So we had to move further out. Not a good beginning. But my aunt, who was exceptionally well respected, no money because people didn't have money. They didn't have food. And I worshipped her. And she had an old wind gramophone record. And there was a record in there by Billy Williams, a comedian, when Father painted the parlour. And she used to say that Billy Williams always put an Easter egg down in that hall if I was a good boy. I used to put in there, put out an Easter egg, I was a good boy. And at the height of my goodness, 2 Black and Tans came in. And they said, huh, and what's your name? And I thought, I'll talk to you in Gaelic. She said, my name is Paddy. Oh, Paddy. And will you sing for us, Paddy? I will if you'll pay me. Oh, and how much do you want, Paddy? I want a penny. Oh. So I sang, they put me on the counter, and I sang Sing a Song of Sixpence, Pocket Full of Rye. You know, the old song. They held my hand out. I wanted them to put a penny in, and they said facetiously, and Patrick, what are you going to do with all that money? And I said, I'll put it in an envelope and send it across the water to my father to buy bullets to shoot you lot. The place evacuated. Everyone, they were sure. I mean, young people were shot for much less. They were shooting children at 2 and 3 and 4 and 5. I was a little bit older.
How old were you,
Not
Paddy?
much.
How old then?
I was 6 then.
6, okay.
Yeah. And
when I got home, I got one hell of a lambasting. And it is my first approach to doubting philosophy. I said, how do you expect me to believe anyone? You keep on telling me, to my mother, that you love me, and you keep on hitting me. The black and tans say they want to shoot me, but they give me a penny. So where is the philosophy? Who do I believe? I got another lambasting for being too clever for my age.
It's happened your entire life.
Next question.
Well, are there any other stories you'd like to share from when you were young? And you know, are there any other stories you'd like to share from when you were young, living in the lighthouse and island?
Well, the lighthouse was a rock of water. It was called Dundee, D-U-N-D-E-A-D-Y, Dundee Island. And for several hours of the day you could motor across it. But the sea was exceptionally rough. And my father specialised in two areas. One was wreckage salvage, and the other one was rocket life-saving. He was in charge of that, and he had a rocket station because there was no radar, anything like that. And he would locate from experience where the message was coming from, and he would fire 5 or 6 rockets around that area, light the whole area up, then the rescue people would go in and rescue the boats. And he got a medal for that, which I've got now, and he was very proud of it.
Very good.
Do you want to talk about life in Wales?
Oh, life in Wales, yeah?
But
What about your life in Wales?
in Wales,
In Wales, yes.
Sure. Feel free to do what you need to do.
we didn't know what to expect. My father had to start work at the very bottom. He was unemployed. He'd given up his job at the Board of Trade. There were no lighthouses, so they said finish.
And how old were you at this age?
Eh?
How old were you?
I was 6,
6, okay.
and he started off as a stoker at the very bottom of the ladder. And when he retired, he was in charge of the whole of the distribution of electricity. He only lost half a day's work when he had all his teeth out. Half a day. That's the only time he left work.
That was 1924.
And his lesson to me was this: never forget the country where you came from and never stop loving it. Be exceptionally loyal to the company that's giving you shelter, and do what you can for them. And don't bear a grudge too long against anything, because it becomes a cancer. And he explained to me, he said, look, that lawn out there, we had no lawnmowers in those days, hand. He said, every blade of grass looks the same. But as we go closer, every blade of grass is different. Just like people, thank God.
Very
Good
profound.
thinking.
Yeah, very good.
Yeah.
Very good. Many of the
School in Air Force?
Yes, school. So, and your schooling life, do you have any...
Pardon?
At school?
School.
Yes.
Well, you see, the Welsh were a race with their own language. And when it came up to a trick, you had to have 5 subjects to pass the trick. If you had 7 subjects and you passed them and one wasn't Welsh, you failed the whole 7. You had to pass in Welsh. So I wasn't going to make my career in South Wales, although I admired the tremendous courage of people with, I don't think anyone could have suffered greater poverty. Fathers dying with coal dust, no doctors, no medicine. Families brought up, no money coming in. And a great number of them at school were very much more intelligent than I was in every way. But we were good friends and we got along. I learnt Welsh. I had to go to night school for 2 years and I spoke Welsh with an Irish accent, fluently. I could make conversation with anybody in Welsh.
So you spoke Welsh, Gaelic?
Eh?
You spoke Gaelic as well?
Oh yes, and English.
English and Indian? Yeah?
Yeah.
Oh gosh.
You had to, in those days, you had to be flexy.
Yeah.
In fact, we know about the Indian because the other night at the Indian restaurant that Paddy came to, he was speaking in the local.
Ordered in Indian.
Well, yes, and having a good old chat to the waiter there in his local language. Hindi, yeah. So it's quite unique.
So how long did you live in South Wales for?
Until I passed the examination, and my father wanted me to become an indentured apprentice with the Navy.
Right.
But he gave for my birthday present 2 shillings, and we went down to a place in South Wales called Porthcawl, beautiful spot.
Birthday, 18th birthday, 16th?
Porthcawl is a golfing place.
Right.
But they also have a strip of land, and the Flying Circus, 3 aircraft, were giving an air display. And I spent 2 shillings for 20 minutes in the air. And boy, did I come back, and I said to my dad, no C for me. I'm going there.
Good man.
Very good.
What was the aircraft type, Paddy?
Pardon?
The aircraft type? The type
Biplane.
Do you know what make was it?
Yes, I think I've got it down, written down. I tell you who my pilot was. He's knighted now, and he runs the air refueling. Alan Cobham.
Alan Cobham. Oh, he was involved
Yeah,
with.
It was Alan Cobham's Flying Circus. He's now Sir Alan Cobham, and I did the flight with him. And he put the wind up me. Believe you me, I said I'm going to fix this.
Good on you. Because he was involved with car racing as well, wasn't he?
Oh, that's right.
Yeah. And you were how old then?
Oh, I was then 16.
16. Okay.
Yeah, just about ready to go in for an indenture.
Right.
So you joined.
So instead of that, I took the civil service examination and went to the RAF Engineering College for 3 years.
And where was that? The engineering college?
Buckinghamshire.
Buckinghamshire.
Halton, yeah.
Okay.
And during that 3 years, we were expected to pass the examinations every 3 months, 4 months. Results sent home to our parents. And at the end of the training, we did 5 years flying and then reversed to our technical job. Of course, it never happened because the war started. Everything changed.
So what's your memory of the war starting, Paddy?
What?
What was your memory of the war starting? Were you excited or were you annoyed, or how do you feel about or how did you feel when the war started?
Well, my attitude was that's why we joined up. We joined up to protect the country. And if there was an enemy, well, bad luck on him if we can get him.
What sort of aircraft were you flying?
Pardon?
What sort of aircraft was the squadron that you were...
Oh, well, they changed.
Yeah.
Because they were on biplanes, and the first change, they were Hawker Hinds, normally aspirated, not supercharged. The first change came with the short-nosed Blenheim aircraft.
The Bristol Blenheim.
They were good aircraft.
Mm.
Not the long nose, the short nose.
Twin engine.
And they were a different type. You see, the old biplane was highly skilled engineering. It had a bottom plane, a top plane, struts. The angle of incidence had to be correct, otherwise the aircraft would go straight in or straight up and down. It's wonderful. And I remember the first lecture we got at a place called Ulster on the Thai border. The gaffer, the old man, called us out. He said, there's no B&B in Kuala Lumpur. There wasn't a single B&B in Kuala Lumpur. You couldn't get bed and breakfast. You couldn't get a cup of tea. And you're all forbidden to go to Penang, because Penang is the well-renowned red light district. And I remember writing to my mother saying, "Dear mother, what is a red light district?" She said, "I'll tell you when I come back."
So Paddy, what was your involvement in the Second World War?
Well, when my commission came through, I sat 2 boards, and my commission came through, and I was the engineer officer of 5 Squadron. And then I was the engineer on 2 squadrons. I never left the forward area. The whole time I was in the forward area for 2 reasons. Firstly, I joined the war. I joined there to defeat the enemy. To me, the enemy was Japan. And I wasn't looking for comfort, and I didn't get it. But I did get £110 a year extra money for being in the danger zone all the time.
And that was Malaysia.
Singapore.
That was what, were you in Malaysia there or Singapore? What area were you actually?
Singapore.
Singapore, yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Al-Astar on Kedah, just not far from KL.
Yeah. And that was what, 1940 at that stage, or 42-ish?
1939 we arrived in Singapore. 1940, 41.
Yeah.
It is quite a cushy place because I rode horses. I was mad on horses. And one of the friends I had on that journey was Freddie Head, who became the French leading trainer. He was an apprentice, a Newmarket apprentice. We did some hacking together, but I enjoyed it because I ran a book on the scorpion. The scorpion is a killer. The white one is a killer. The black one will kill the native because the native dies of fright. So every morning you tipped your shoes upside down and got rid of the scorpion before you put your shoes on, always. But I ran a book and I'd get the white scorpion, which was the killer, and I'd put a ring of petrol around it and I'd set fire to the petrol, and then I'd open the book as to when the scorpion would commit suicide. And I made a fortune.
Great sport. That sounds great.
Paddy, what are your memories of the Japanese attack on Singapore? What do you remember of the Japanese attack on Singapore?
Well, it was chaos. The first day, you see, when the Japanese, it is a novel type of bombing. They sent in the bombers first. Say there were 50 on the first raid, 23rd of December. There were 50 or 60 Japanese bombers. My job then was to try and locate the height, the distance. It's all guesswork. Fairly accurate from the noise. And then scramble the fighters to give them time to get up. When the bombs were dropped, and believe you me, if you imagine 60 bombers dropping all the bombs together, anything that moved when the dust had settled was shot down by the strafers. So 10,500 people were killed on the first raid in Rangoon. And that was devastating.
When the order came, when the order came to either surrender or leave Singapore, what did you do?
Run like hell. No.
And how many of you were there together?
No, I was out, you see. When Singapore fell, I was evacuated on a ship to Burma. And Burma, I remained in Burma we took the last train. I was given 5 men to take them out. I think it's something in the order of 30 kilometers, 40 kilometers from Rangoon, and make welcome any emergency landing on the satellite of the place called Pegu, P-E-G-U. Pegu is an interesting religious centre because a couple of 100 years ago the earth opened up and the whole village disappeared and the earth closed. Tremendous. It's now a shrine. And there was something in the order of 200,000 gallons of petrol there and a landing strip. And my job was to put the buckets down on either side of the landing strip, light them with the empty bucket by the side. And if I decided the aircraft I heard was friendly, race up and down, put buckets on and cover the flames so the Japanese wouldn't see them. It was a hairy war. And the first night I thought, this is a good test. I took 7 of the men with me into the shelter until they told me the next day the shelter was the housing for 300,000 gallons of petrol. My status was ruined.
Your rep, yeah. So you mentioned Burma, and Mum said something about you spending time in the jungle in Burma.
Pardon?
Did you spend time in the jungle in Burma?
Like escaping from the Japanese?
Oh, Burma was, yes. I was given a message to take my team of 5 or 6 to Rangoon from Pegu and get on the train. And it's interesting, when I got down there, the driver came up and spoke, and I said, when are you getting out? And he said, well, I'm sailing out in 2 days' time.
Behind the toaster.
I said, how do you know this is the last train? He said, because the governor of Burma is on board. And he's going up to Magway, and so are you, and you'll be attached to the Americans for scorched earth policy, setting fire to the oil fields in Yen and Yao. And that was interesting. Interesting exercise. And we were on our own then, to defend for ourselves. We eventually got picked up and got onto Akyab was the island, a very important island, and we managed to get on board a ship manned by Chinese. I had a beard coming down here. No wind, but it was moving all the time because the maggots were busy eating each other. And we got to Calcutta. Calcutta was civilized, absolutely civilized. But my mother and my parents got a letter to say that I was missing, believed prisoner of war.
Oh,
I don't know where that letter is, but I never got paid for 5 months. I'm still trying to get the money.
What did your father say when he heard that you were suspected?
Well, my sister cried, my mother passed out. And my father reached for the James Jameson whiskey and said, God help the Japanese. I don't believe that. He wouldn't say that. He wouldn't say that. But my sister hit the nail on the head much later, very much later. She said, you know, Patrick, you're slipping. I said, oh, I'm slipping. You wrote home and asked for £50. I said, yes. If he'd asked for 500, you'd have got it. I said, I'll remember that. So when that was over, I was seconded I was sent to Cambridge in the UK to research pressurization of aircraft fighter reconnaissance cabins, because they were flying into Rangoon and not making it back. And I remember messages were brief in those days. I was a deputy director, and I found a note on my desk, O'Leary, sort this out. So I went down to Rolls-Royce Derby, I had a session, and they said, we've got the right man for you. And I met him, briefed him, he went off, he came back, and the CO, the Air Commodore, put the report on my desk, and he said, Commons, O'Leary, Commons. So I read it, and I ran, put it there, rubbish. Sent it back to him. He sent it back to me, agree, sort out.
And that was about 1944 or so? Late 40s, later on the war, I guess?
Yeah, just about that.
Okay.
Were you still in the Air Force at this stage?
Pardon?
Were you still in the Air Force?
Oh yes, I was in the Air Force till the end of the war.
Okay.
I decided to leave because I lost my first interview for commission. I got through and the papers were lost. I started again, and I'm damned if they didn't get lost 6 months later. When I got back, all my friends who had never gone abroad were 3 and 4 and 5 ranks higher. And I said, I'm not staying on just to work my guts out to cut these blighters up. So I said, no, I'm going out. I left.
Paddy, could you tell us a little bit about the battle for Kohima in north-eastern India?
My connection with Kohima is interesting. At the party in Calcutta, the civilians were very kind to us when we were debugged, all this stuff, and given our uniform. They threw a party, and they were showing, a bunch of ladies were showing some photographs. And I said, I commandeered that house for an officer's mess, and a sergeant's mess, and a corporal's mess, 3 houses. And a girl on my right said, that big house there, I was born in. And she turned out to be the daughter of the civil surgeon, who happened to have come from Rotunda Hospital, Dublin. And we became great friends. Eventually we married. But her father said to her, look, you've got money, you've got skills, you're fully qualified, forget earning money and do some voluntary work on the Burma Road. People are losing limbs and they need advice. So she went up on the Burma Road, 59 IGH, unpaid, volunteer. So we were great friends. We thought we would eventually marry. Then a signal came in one day, and it said, O'Leary selected to play for Scotland and Ireland against England and Wales at rugby in Calcutta. And the CO said, don't they realise there's a bloody war on? I said, okay, I won't go. He said, you've got to go, it's an order. But I want you here 3:30 in the morning the next day. I can't have a drink with the boys, you can't have a drink with the boys. I came back and I was on the strip at 3:30 in the morning, no beer, lost the match, not feeling very good. Months later, he said, look, you've had a skinful. You're not well, you're bad-tempered. I said, yes. He said, you'll agree with me. I said, yes. He said, you're due to go home and your relief is here. Excellent. But he's gone down with diabetes. And I want you to stay on, if you will, another 4 months, 5 months. So I said, okay. What the hell is 4 months in 5.5 years? I said, but I want a favour from you. He said, okay. I want an aircraft to take me up to Imphal, the forward area, and then transport up to 59 IGH to meet the colonel and get my prospective wife, healed from espousy, released. He said, okay. And that was my first visit to Kohima. It was about 6,500 feet high. No airstrip. The airstrip was Imphal. And freezing cold. And I stayed in the dark bungalow. And I was with the Nagas, and apparently they knew all about me. How they were headhunters. If you went into their house, you'd find heads all over. Not mine. That was it. So he said, there's a party for you tonight in the village. I said, how the hell did they know I was coming up? He said, they know everything. Everything that goes on here, and they're very loyal to Britain. Okay. So we had a good party. Next morning I saw the colonel. He laid on a car. I won't tell you the nitty-gritty. And got her release. Flew back to Calcutta, down by road and then by plane. And the squadron said, we'll fly a Hurricane exactly the time that your wedding is on. And they did. But she didn't turn up. So, of course, that was right up the street of my ardent followers. O'Leary's been jilted. My basis had gone. She turned up about 5 weeks later. Had been cut off by the Japanese on the way down, taken off and released by the Americans. Now we got married.
And what was her name, Paddy?
But
What was her name?
Mary Ellen Curran.
Yeah.
Curran. And her father didn't want to go to Burma. He wanted to go to India. He'd been out and he'd seen the need. But for some reason, in Whitehall, they made Burma a part of the Indian Empire. Different religion, different language, totally different people. Don't know why. Nobody had understood. The Americans were furious because you couldn't go by road from India to Burma. Everything had to go by sea. Targets for the Japanese. Ridiculous. But interesting times.
Paddy, there's a story I recall you relating to us once about you going flying in an aircraft, but you couldn't. But you didn't make the flight in the end. Do you recall that story where an aircraft crashed?
Oh yes.
Would you be happy to relate that story, the situation there?
The air gunner in the Blenheim was not protected adequately, so we had to install armour plating, and that was a hell of a job using what was known as French Schobert riveting. The plate had to be held up, drilled, and the rivets put in. The centre of gravity of the aircraft was upset enormously. And one of my jobs was to fly in the aircraft and reset the centre of gravity. And one of the engineers asked if he could stand in for me, and I said no. And he got stroppy, and I said, you better go to the commanding officer. I'm not giving you permission, it's my job. And the CO came and said, look, let him go. I said, no, you let him go, sir. I can't. He said, okay. Now, with the twin aircraft, 2 engines there, the unwritten law is you're flying along like that or many engine cuts. If you turn like that, you go straight into the ground. You've got to turn the other way. And this is one thing the pilot forgot. and he was a very, very experienced pilot. He turned the wrong way to bank in and went straight into the ground. The chap who took my place died. I met her about 30 years later, explained everything. I made a point of sorting her out. She never married. And she never got the true story.
That was, sorry, his fiance.
What?
That was his fiance.
Yeah,
Yes. Okay.
yeah.
Paddy, you made your career in India. You chose to work in India, and while you were there, you met some extraordinary people, including Mother Teresa. Could you tell us a little bit about Mother Teresa?
She was a tough cookie.
And what was it like when you first met her? What was she like doing? And
Well, I knew the convent, firstly, very well. And I knew the Portuguese, the priest, the Italian, Don Bosco. And I got linked with them, with Don Bosco, because they were skilled, and I said, I will give you a free building and machinery. You pick up the people you pick up for training. They're not Christians, some were, some weren't. Train them, and I will guarantee that I'll place them in jobs. And it was very, very successful. And I was driving back one day, because you could have a riot in Calcutta of the drop of the hat. You know, there'd be a rumour that somebody had spat on the image of Jinnah or something, and then everything would go up in flames. I was driving back one day and I saw a group of people in a queue, pouring with rain, the monsoon, and two women giving out something, and I stopped and I said, what are you doing? She said, I'm eliminating leprosy in Calcutta. I said, okay. Can we help in any way? I said, what's your name? She said, my name is Agnes, and I'm teaching in Loreto, Entally. Entally was the second, not the main school, the second one. And I said, well, I know your Mother Superior very well. She's a friend of mine. What do you want from us? 50 empty boxes of matches. I said, okay. That's how we got to know her. She came in and I gave her 50 empty boxes of matches. They've never smoked so much in all their life. I said, I give you 1 week to smoke 50 boxes of matches. Do what you like with them. So she had a leaning towards emphasizing the need of the disabled child. Cheshire Homes already had leprosy homes. I had 3 of them. And all denominations, Christians, Hindus, all. So I said, Michael Gomez was one of my trustees on the Cheshire Trust. A very good man. He was in charge of security in India, in Calcutta. And he gave Mother Teresa her first room free of charge. And he often tells the story. He'd come back and he'd see a note on his door. Dear Michael, I haven't eaten for 2 days. Could have spared a bowl of soup. Mother Teresa. But that was her training. If you joined the order, all you got was a scrubbing brush, an empty pail, a bucket and a sari. Go out with the poor. If you don't live with the poor, you'll never understand them. And that was logic.
what was she like as a person?
She would call at my place twice a month at least. And she'd sit on the floor. I said, come on, get off the floor, it's clean. Sit on a chair.
Last year, which was very interesting to know. And I was dying to talk about Mother Teresa. And she said, she started her own order.
Yeah, she left the. She was a splitter.
I was just, I was all dying to know about Mother.
Yeah.
Oh, she's fantastic. She's
Marvellous.
very tender.
And we're back on there.
I'll ask that question again, probably.
Yeah, just brief.
So Pat, are you rolling?
Rolling.
You're rolling, good. Paddy, what sort of person was Mother Teresa? What was she like?
I'll tell you a couple of stories. The Jesuit College in Darjeeling. Darjeeling is a beautiful hill station. It's about 6,000 feet high, and you can walk around the parade and look down through a hole in the clouds and see the planes, 6,000, the plane, not airplanes, the planes, 6,000 feet down below. That's the sort of place it is. And you walk around and you're walking above the clouds, or in the clouds. So your whole life is different. You're seeing nature as you have heard about it but never thought you'd see it. You never thought you could walk in the morning, as we often did, and see the sun come up over Tiger Hill. The first sunshine in that area. Fantastic scenery. And that's where, going way back, thousands of years, they say the holy men of India ruled the Indian commerce and country. You see, there's a saying, it's more difficult to get your camel with merchandise into Cairo than it is to get a camel through the eye of a needle. They say, that's rubbish. But what they don't realize is, it's just a saying. The eye of the needle was the customs in Cairo. Thousands of years ago, they called it the eye of the needle. And it was very tough to get your camel through there with all the merchandise on. You had to give baksheesh. And then they would study a yoga. They what I call bastardized yogism is now an exercise. A true yogi will sit in meditation and empty his mind completely of everything which is material. Everything. So he can transmit his body from ground level up to 30,000 feet or 32,000 feet Mount Everest and still remain down below. I've seen them take an eye out like that and put it back in. One man swallowed a pint of neat sulfuric acid, held it and then passed it with the same specific gravity as hydrochloric acid.
The power of the brain.
I haven't tried it. But that's the power. And many of them now are diminishing.
You mentioned Mount Everest. Do you remember when Edmund Hillary and Sherpa Tenzing came back from conquering Everest? What do you remember about that event?
What do I
remember?
Well, I remember the feat. I remember I met Tenzing many times. In fact, I have a scarf which he gave me, which now Brenda has. Tenzing and Hillary got there at the same time. The story is the Bengali, because Darjeeling is in Bengal, in the defence of Warren Hastings, the attorney said if you're walking down a dark lane and you come across a cobra and a Bengali, kill the Bengali first. I wouldn't go as far as that, but they are revolutionaries. And I had quite a few of them educated in England, and I remember when the day following the party of Hillary and Ten Singh, when they came back down into Calcutta, the senior metallurgist came up to me and said, "Excuse me, sir, can I have a word?" I said, "Yes." Were you at the party? I said, "Yes, I met them." "Do you know what we're saying in Calcutta?" I said, "No, but you're going to tell me." "Yes, sir." Thank God 2 Englishmen didn't get there at the same time, because they'd form a club and blackball each other. But it was all water. It was not important. Both Hillary and Ten Singh were great people in their own right.
Now, is this a scarf that
Yes.
Ten Singh gave you?
That's the one.
And why did he give it to you?
Pardon?
Why did he give it to you?
I never asked him, I took it.
He liked him. He liked him.
Or Paddy's a thief. Either one.
Just put it around your neck.
Oh.
Do you want to get it quick?
Does it suit my outfit, Paddy?
Paddy, projecting forward many years now, you go to the UK every year for about 6 months or so, 6 months in Australia and 6 months in the UK. When you were in the UK last year, being 2014, you were there for about 6 months or so, you gave a presentation talk at 5 Squadron. You gave a talk at your old squadron, I think. Is that what I recall?
Yes.
And you were the guest of honour, I believe. And could you tell us a little bit about that particular event and how significant?
Well, I think they overdid it. They made me the chief guest, but I mean, people did much more. People did much more than I did. I mean, I was a follow-on chap.
It was the 70th anniversary.
Yes, they're going to knit me a coat, a Naga coat.
There we are.
Because, you see, what happened is sad in many ways, but fruitful. We have walked away after winning serious battles and forgotten the people. What better example than Malta? Look at the sacrifices that Malta made. They got the Malta Cross, and we walked away and left them stranded, so they became communists. And the sacrifices that we gave to Malta, and the people in Malta themselves gave, was terrific. The same thing happened in Burma. Burma was a little more complicated because it was infiltrated with tribal differences in many ways. Aung San's father was a traitor, but he was a traitor in our eyes, not in the Burmese eyes. You know, depends what you look at. I had the job of destroying his aircraft so he couldn't escape. In a tricycle undercarriage aircraft.
Did you blow it up? Or?
Yeah. We just took the wheels off. Any return to But this is depends what you're looking at. Aung San now is a heroine. The junta has been very careful and very clever. They've kept her in hiding so that she has lost her frontage. I don't think she will lead the country again. She's done her bit. And we'll just walk away. And how they sorted out, goodness knows, can you sort out 5 tribal differences without the gun? It's difficult.
Paddy, moving on to your lovely wife Brenda behind you there. Could you? I don't want to put you under the under pressure here, but what year were you married to Brenda? Now he's playing deaf. What year were you married to Brenda?
What year we were married?
Can you help me out, Brenda?
There's a bottle of champagne
Yeah.
with a label with the date of our wedding, but it's in Staffordshire, so we'll have to ask the neighbours to go in.
1964.
No, that was number 2. Number 3. I think we've been married about 10 years.
10 years, okay, sure. Okay. I thought it was about that time.
It was a very quiet wedding because I said we'd have a private wedding and no boasting. So we had the priest. I had to go through an interrogation that no prisoner ever went through. Because the priest who married us was new to the diocese and he didn't have authority to marry us. So I had to go through interrogation. And this woman from the Comintern, or from some...
the registrar office.
She said, you know, if you tell us an untruth, you can go to jail. I said, oh, thanks very much. You know, it's a nice little warning. What's your name? What's your wife's first name? I said, no idea, call her darling. Oh, boy. So she said, look, I must have proof that you're living together. I said, but we're not living together. She has a separate place in my house. We're not living together, and I'm paying the rent of the house myself. She's not paying it. She's my guest, and she has a vote in this country. Wouldn't take it. I said, what does he want from me? She said, I want a letter to say that she's a guest in your house.
No, she's paying the bills.
Yeah.
We need a bill to prove that she's...
So I thought, oh, I'll fix this once and for all. So I got a letter from the Governor of Ireland.
No, the Queen wrote to me.
And the Queen.
Royal Ascot.
Royal Ascot. I said, now, if this is not enough, I'm sure the Governor will support it. Is it enough? She grabbed and walked off.
That's telling you. Just going back to your second marriage in 1964, I recall there's a story about the actual wedding day itself where to do with the car or something.
That was his marriage to Brenda.
Oh, yeah.
To Brenda. What happened? Sorry, I got the wrong there.
It was the second marriage. They were on their honeymoon, 1964, going to India. And my uncle and aunt, Auntie Teresa and Uncle Jack, had taken me on this world cruise with your godmother. And I was the only one that could influence her in any way. It was very off the rails. So they took me. And on the way back via India to Melbourne, he and his second wife were on their honeymoon, and I was being courted by this beautiful ship's officer, and they thought, that poor young girl, poor, she's so young and beautiful, we'll rescue her.
You didn't want to be rescued, did you?
So they did. But then they left the ship in Bombay, so we took over where we left off and came on to Melbourne. So that's how we met. But I was friendly with his wife. We remained friends.
Lovely.
Always.
Yeah.
So, yeah, what happened when he married me? The car.
What about leaving?
What happened with the car? What was the...
Ask him.
Okay, what happened with the
Well, you see,
car?
I was handing over the meeting. I was due to come to the UK, and I wanted to make sure that the line of responsibility in the trust was not broken. It went right up to the Prime Minister. So I arranged for Cyrus Das, who was the chairman of P&O, to take over my role. And he was a good man. And at that meeting, when I was handing it over, Mary Ellen got a major coronary.
That's his first wife.
And she
Died
died a few
very
days
young.
later
Had a heart attack.
at the meeting.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Very
Good.
young.
Yeah.
Yeah. But this is our parish priest. We go with him to Royal Ascot every year. This is in the Royal Enclosure calls. We're not there.
Oops, it's going back
It's
a
all
bit.
happening this week. This is our parish priest.
You need to move it across in front of Paddy's face. In front of his face. Yeah, it's too late.
He comes with us to Royal Ascot every year, even though I've fallen out with him because of the damage he did to me.
Pardon?
Marrying him. Yeah. We were taking him home afterwards from the church, and I got I didn't get in the back, did I? Father Michael got in the front with you, and I saw someone that I knew, so I just went to say hello, and they drove off and left me.
Well, you're a married woman at that stage. So.
Absolutely. What couldn't I have done? But I'd put my handbag into the car. What couldn't I have done? If I'd had my handbag, oh boy, I could have.
But Father Michael showed what a fantastic pastoral ability he had. He said, "She's not there." I said, "Open the boot." Open the boot. She's not there. I said, "What the hell am I going to do?" "I don't know about you, Patrick, but I'm going right to bed." He goes off, blesses me, and he goes off.
He just knew the trouble that was going to happen after this.
He phoned up about 2 hours later. He said, "How are things, Paddy?" I said, "Don't ask me."
That was day one.
Well, that was 10 years ago or so, wasn't it?
It's
So,
got worse since
All right.
then.
Things can only improve.
just one question I wanted to probably finish up on now, and it just goes back a little bit in time. It's when you're working in India, this is post-war, and but correct me if I'm wrong with my comments here, but you're working in India in factories, and in very large factories, and could you just tell us about your life there post-war, working and what you're involved with, manufacturing and
I got involved
people you
when
met?
I left the Air Force against the wishes of my senior people, because they said, "Look, we've spent all this time training you." And I said, "I'm not staying." And I took up electrical and civil. And I concentrated on what I thought was the future: high frequency induction heating. Because I was interested in steel making and the use of steel and alloys in aircraft. And I wrote a thesis. I studied this for about 2 years, wrote a thesis, used for the first time water diviners. I had 3 on permanent employment, and
Come
My
in.
thesis was accepted
Come in.
and I was made a fellow.
Is the door open?
And I introduced it into India, high frequency induction heating. And what it is, it's to eliminate the machining.
Two. Oh, they're the young ones.
Oh, we've got 2 meetings going on. Let us know when you finish yours.
No, we've got visitors still.
It's just Chris and Ella, yeah. So, yeah.
Oh, that's great. Yeah.
But keep them going, Paddy. We'll just, yeah, that's great. Keep them going, Paddy.
So what I tied up with a Belgian company, ACEC, and installed an air-conditioned building with 110 kilowatt vertical generators, and I had 3 water diviners. The water had to be absolutely pure. Absolutely pure. And what it did...
We're just going to hold your comment there. Absolutely pure. We'll hold that.
...is to reduce the cost of the simplest of things. India has a simple but very keen labour force. Some trained, some untrained. Especially in the Punjab. But the cost is, if you're making a cycle, a pedal cycle, you have a chain and you have sprockets. Those sprockets are drop forged like that. And then they have to go through a very expensive method of machining to adopt the chain. And I said, we must eliminate the necessity of machining. And high frequency induction heating did just that. The bar goes through, the steel bar goes through a series of coils and is heated from the inside out, so that all the scale drops off and there's no machining afterwards. And they made a fortune.
Great.
So that was a simple, I mean the cooker is a good example of it.
Yes.
It cooks the food from the inside.
Marvellous. Marvellous.
If we're going over an hour, you probably need a break. But is there anything else you wanted to add in?
Well, there's so much to tell.
You're talking about 97 years. There's a lot of history, isn't there?
Let's take the role of the church. Because the church has come in for a tremendous amount of criticism. Rightfully or wrongfully. The North Point College is rated as the Eton of the East. And the people in the Philippines will pay a fortune to get their sons there, and it's run by the Canadian Jesuits. Now I met them first when I went to Darjeeling in 1946 for a break. And I found in Bishop's house, and there was no bishop, in Bishop's house they had 14 rooms, 1 electric heater. That's all they had. No hot water, freezing temperature, and I thought that was disgraceful. So I got to know them very well and started sending clothes up and electric fires. And the problem I had was that they became so friendly that I had to nail everything to the ground in the house so they didn't take it away with them when they left.
That's great.
I had a vintage 1935 Plymouth Coupe. Beautiful. I had to get special permission from the Indian government to work on that engine because they didn't want any person from abroad taking work away from the Indians. I can understand that. So do it yourself, I'm useless at. I can drive a nail into the wall, provided both are soft. I missed that altogether. but I was allowed to work on the car. And I was driving back one day from Dum Dum, picked up Father Prendergast, my friend, and he said, "Paddy?" I said, "Yes." He said, "This is a lovely car." I said, "Yes." He said, "You've got a company car as well." I said, "Yes." "Gee, Paddy, you don't want two cars, do you?" "Uh-huh. Why don't you give one to the bishop who's going to be a bishop next year?" So I went home and discussed it. "Yes, give it." So I saw him and I said, "Okay." So I wrote it and said, "The car is yours, but I'm not driving it up to Darjeeling 6,000 feet high. Come and collect it." And I got a lovely letter back saying, "No, I don't think we could afford to run it, but sell it and send us the check." And that's what we did.
Oh, wow.
Oh, that's good.
And when he became bishop, and he was the first bishop of Darjeeling in the whole of India, fantastic man, Nepali. When he became bishop of Darjeeling, Prendy said, "Brenda's going to England shortly, isn't she?" I said, "Yes."
Winky.
"And she'll be in London." "What, Winky? She'll be in London." I said, "Yes." "Do you think she could buy the bishop all his regalia?" I said, "Yes." "That's a lovely gift, Paddy." we bought his whole outfit.
Yeah, that's marvellous. That's great. Thank you for that, Paddy. Thank you for your all your stories. They've been absolutely marvellous. Now we're just going to get everyone into the back of the video here. So, Christo and everyone.
Should we get behind Paddy?
Hello.
Jane, do you want to come around?
No, family, really. No.
Oh, you're part of the family.
No.
They're going to adopt you.
Yeah.
And Brenda?
Yeah, Brenda,
Oh,
you
taking a
are.
photo? I
Where's
don't
Brenda?
I've got Winky.
Linda?
Yeah. No, we're just going to be in the... That's all. We're on video still. Thank you, Paddy. Thank you for your time. I'll get a photo.
Cheers.
All right. Okay, now hold on. Okay, so Paddy has a bit more to add about Mother Teresa. When you're ready, Paddy.
Paddy,
Start.
Martin's asking you to say what you have in mind.
About Mother
What I have
Teresa?
in mind, it'll take half an hour.
No.
I blocked the conversation last time. We had an interruption. All I said was that Mother Teresa was a tough cookie. That is an Americanism and should have been the opening phrase and needs a lot of explanation. The Loreto Convent in Calcutta had two schools. One was a paid school and a very high standard, and the other one was down in a place called Entally. And Mother Teresa taught in Entally as a teacher, Sister Agnes. And I was driving back one day from the factories in the monsoon, pouring with rain, and I saw a group of people half a mile long in this, without umbrellas, drenched, soaked, taking something from a European female. So I stopped the car and said, "Who are you?" And she said, "I'm Sister Agnes from Entally." I said, "Oh, I know." "Yes, I know." I said, "What are you doing?" She said, "I'm giving out tablets to prevent disease in Calcutta." I said, "Is there any way I can help?" She said, "Give me 50 empty boxes of matches." So I said, "Why?"
she said, so I can put the tablets in. And then they can take the anti-leprosy tablets without them getting wet. I said, okay. I had everyone smoking cigarettes for a couple of months. But the 50 tablets, 50 boxes, empty boxes, and gave them to Sister Agnes. And we became great friends. Leonard Cheshire was a frequent visitor to Calcutta and always stayed with me. He and his wife Sue Ryder were married in our Bombay Cheshire homes. And just, there were two, both of them, Leonard and Sue, were great charitable people, but totally different in their approach to charity. And one day, a man approached Leonard Cheshire and said, do you remember me? He was very elderly and not quite well. And Leonard says, well, I don't, but tell me something. He said, I was on your squadron, I was an engineer, fitter. I've lost all my relations in the bombing, and I'm terminally sick with cancer, and I have no place. He said, you have a place. You have my house, and I will look after you. And he nursed him for 18 months until he died. That's how the Cheshire Home started. And in that he learned so much that people must not suffer alone. Untidy, unkempt, wearing clothes that didn't fit them in the gutter. And that's where the Cheshire Home started. And it's a beautiful story. Now cut for a minute.
Yeah.
It's based on reincarnation.
This is the Hindu philosophy.
Which means that when a person dies, they will come back in another life in a better status, a higher status than when they died. And this is a great hope for their future. They believe in it. So they don't mind a person dying in the street, in the gutter, anywhere, because they know they're going to come back to a better life. And that's the whole philosophy of the Hindu life. We think that they're hard and cruel, but they don't think so. And we used to criticize the burning of the body, but we have accepted today the very same thing. We can bury people or we can burn them. Exactly what the Hindus do. So there is a philosophy there which is slightly different, but as Mother Teresa said, there are so many different roads to the house of God. But at the end, there is God. And you can go that way, that way, that way, or that way. And there's no hatred of the person who's dying, dirty, filthy, in pain. There is no hatred. It's just a philosophy that's based there. And that's why people think that, the Americans do think that it was a cruel thing, but it's not cruelty. It is a part of the religion. And we talk about when you go to hell, you'll burn. Well, people can't imagine O'Leary on a thing burning.
And your wife with you.
That's right, yeah.
Well, I'm not going there.
So the whole philosophy, you see, this man who came up to Leonard Cheshire and said, do you remember me? And Leonard said, no, but he had so many people to remember. He said, I was on your aircraft as an engineer. I've lost everything. I've got terminal cancer. I've got nowhere to go. He said, you have. You come to my home. I will take care of you. And that was the first person Leonard had. And he cared for him for 18 months.
and gave him a peaceful death. That was sheer care and love. To balance that, his wife was the opposite. She gave very, very much herself to love based on the hatred of the Germans. It's a different type. And I suppose at the end of the day, if you drop behind the lines and see what's going on, it's a natural reaction to see how the Poles were treated, how they were killed, how they died. So she couldn't stand it. She was dropped there 2 or 3 times behind the lines. But they had a good family. And it's nice to know how the Cheshire Home started. And it started based on the care and love of one person, and Leonard said, this will not happen, it must not happen again.
Very good.
He started the homes.
Good on you. Thanks for that, Paddy. It's a great, marvellous to hear from a remarkable 97-year-old Paddy.